Welcome to Pet Sitter Confessional, an open and honest discussion about life as a pet sitter. Today we're brought to you by our friends at Time to Pet and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters. Mental health is a really big issue, and it's a big topic that we don't really pay enough attention to. So how can we come together as a community to support people who are struggling or might not really see or know exactly what's going on? How can we come around them in the best possible way? And I'm actually really excited to have Gigi Tsontos on the show today from Not One More Vet to talk about the issues of mental health in vet practices and the pet care space in general, and really how we can build a more supportive and better community together. Gigi, again, I'm really excited to have you on and talk about this topic. I know it's near and dear to your heart. For those who aren't familiar with you or NOMV, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you, Collin. We're really excited to be here. I am the executive director of Not One More Vet, shortened to NOMV. And I've been here for about a year, a little over a year. But NOMV has been in existence just over 10 years. The reason that we came into existence was an unfortunate situation where Dr. Sophia Yen, a well-known veterinarian, died by suicide. And a couple of her colleagues and friends came together, including Dr. Nicole MacArthur, and said, hey, let's have some conversations around what's going on. And so Not One More Vet was born. I came in a little over a year ago as the executive director. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, a certified coach, and have a lot of experience running mental health nonprofits, as well as in therapeutic settings as well. So came on to help us move to that next level. We started out, in 2014 as a small organization, volunteer run. We're able to then become a 501c3 in 2017. And then our first staff hiring was in 2020. And really looked at how can we really create a good infrastructure so that this nonprofit could bring well-being to the veterinary medical community. So that's why I'm here. Our mission is really to support the veterinary population towards well-being and mental health so that they survive and thrive.
Mm-hmm. Now, what specifically attracted you to NOMV and its mission?
Absolutely. Well, obviously, I'm very interested in mental health in general because I think it's important for the entire population. But I also grew up around veterinarians, currently we have 5 companion animals of our own in our home. And I've had animals my entire life, including, since I'm from Kansas, farm animals with my family. And so I've seen a lot of different spaces in the vet community. And I thought, when I saw this, it just seemed to mirror 2 passions of mine: people who take care of our animals and being mentally well. And so that's where I came on board, and I've loved every minute of it.
Well, it's a fantastic mission, and it's doing a lot of really good work. I know, it's pretty silent. It's not a lot of people talk about this issue and this concern going on. And from my take, it seems to be people go, well, they're in it because they love animals. They're living out their passion. Really, what could the struggle be? From your perspective, why is NOMV and this organization necessary? Why is this needed these days?
Sure. Well, I think it's always probably been needed. The veterinary community, we think, oh, it's all kittens and puppies and fun. But really, it's the only medical profession where you also have to help people make really life or death decisions. They talk about euthanasia with clients, sometimes for medical reasons and sometimes for financial reasons. Their days, no matter which type of industry, equine, companion animal, large animal, anything, they're dealing with these life and death situations in their face all day, every day. Their time. I recently shadowed the veterinarian that takes care of my animals, and it was amazing. I was only there 4 hours and I just saw all of the differences. So a hurt animal, they did have a few euthanasias that morning from also a really healthy animal just getting a regular checkup to a challenging client whose pet was in need. And so throughout that morning, they had to deal with all of these different ups and downs. So I think the reason that NOMV needs to be here is, first of all, it's an industry. These are bright people, brilliant people who love animals. They want to do well, and they come into it with so much love for the science and the medical piece of this and the animals themselves. And then they have to deal with large school loans. They have to deal with not getting, not pay that's not as high as we anticipate. They are dealing with a shortage of workers in some cases. They're dealing with, I always think it's interesting. They're the only ones. When I go to my medical doctor, I'm not talking to her about what the bill is going to be at the end. Somebody else is talking to me about that, right? And so their days are really have a lot of pieces. And I think historically, culturally in the US and beyond, we haven't spoken about mental health. And this is a community in which that's been the case as well. And so really bringing those skills, knowledge to the community and developing places where they can gain skill, information, get support is key. And so organizations like NOMV, we help get that message out and help change that dynamic so we can prevent mental health challenges in the community.
Well, and what you listed off there was a long list of both personal and professional challenges. I think that really goes underappreciated. I was speaking with our vet a couple of years ago, and I remember them saying, I very rarely see a pet on its best day.
Yeah.
And that really that hit me in the chest, because it was right. Yeah. You come in, they're experiencing pets when they're scared, when they're nervous, when they're dying, right? When there's unknown, you're dealing with anxious owners and people around. Mm-hmm. On top of that, they are running a business. So they're doing payroll, they're hiring, they're worried about what next thing's going to happen. And if you look at their day, you said you were only there for 4 hours. It's you didn't mention anything about they had time to breathe.
Right.
they probably didn't eat, going through this. And so it's where's the them time and to sit and reflect on this stuff. And so it kind of sounds like it's constantly building and adding more and more.
Absolutely. They talk to us about long hours, about, like you said, rarely seeing an animal on their best day. Even the space in which sometimes they have to work. So if you're an equine vet or a large animal vet, you may be in a field working with an animal, and resource activity that changes the dynamic. Even for general practitioner vets, here clinics with companion animals, you could walk up in the morning and have a kitten, and then in the next room could be an animal that was injured. And that up and down, never getting to breathe, you're right, not taking the meal, having the meal breaks or feeling like you have the time for a meal break, taking a breath, having some water, chatting with your colleagues to kind of decompress. All of those things are important and key. And so NOMV really works with them in our Clear Blueprint program to create that space. How do you make those choices to create the space where your team gets lunch breaks, other breaks, that from one session to the other, they have a moment to think, take that deep breath, bring themselves back from whatever it was, or a challenging diagnosis or a case that they're trying to figure out. And I think it's really important that we, as pet guardians, when we're going to the vet, that we prepare ourselves too for how our conversation's going to go. We need to think about, do we have the means to cover a cost if something is bigger? We need to prepare ourselves for those visits and understand that the vet is coming to us with the best options that they can, and us also being prepared to have those conversations with them. So it's not one-sided.
Right. And you see it a lot where people go, I went to the vet and such, and look at this massive bill. And unfortunately, the vet then gets vilified in a lot of cases for they're trying to price gouge. Look how costly they are. And what a lot of people don't understand is just that, I mean, first off, prices have gone up all over the place, but sometimes these specialty tests and specialty things, like it's just very costly. And unfortunately, then it becomes a personal attack against that vet. I mean, we see, I'm sure you see it in Facebook groups all the time. I need to find a vet who doesn't charge an arm and a leg. It's like, well, like that's a really unfair characterization of what's going on here. So they get vilified from this perspective of only in it for the money, while also being expected to work miracles and be available 24/7 too. So there's also these societal pressures that are placed on how they're to operate.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see that. And I actually was at a meeting where we were talking about how much does it cost to keep the lights on? When I turn that light on in the morning, how much does that cost?
Yeah.
And then how much does it cost to do that throughout the week? And it is quite expensive. And animal care is becoming more and more like human medical care. There's more opportunity, there's more availability. And vets are really learning, and how do I share options with owners so that they can make the right decision for them. But that's not always easy to do when you just learn that your animal has cancer, or that they need a leg removed, or whatever it might be. And so to me, I think one thing that we could do as the community is really prepare ourselves and understand that this is a business like others. And most vets are not making anything close to a medical doctor, yet they have similar expenses from vet school. Techs and support staff also have those expenses from their schooling and their life. And so giving them that benefit of the doubt too, and understanding that they're coming to it wanting to give you the best care is really important for us to go into the situation with.
Have you heard of Time to Pet? Dan from NYC Pooch has this to say.
Time to Pet has been a total game changer for us. It's helped us streamline many aspects of our operation, from scheduling and communication to billing and customer management. We actually tested other pet sitting softwares in the past, but these other solutions were clunky and riddled with problems. Everything in Time to Pet has been so well thought out. It's intuitive, feature-rich, and it's always improving.
If you're looking for new pet sitting software, give Time to Pet a try. Listeners of our show will save 50% off your first 3 months by visiting timetopet.com/confessional. And I know I was, looking into this and just some general reading, I saw everything from, veterinarians have a 2 to 4 times higher risk of suicide than the average population. And I know that, depending on which study, there's this variance. Why is this so high?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, we can speculate on why it's so high. One of the reasons given is that there's access to lethal drugs in veterinary clinics, right? So euthanasia drugs are available readily in those clinics. They are supervised, but they're still there. So when you're having a moment, this could be the time when it is more, when access makes a difference. I'm questioning I have this question and it's there and it's easy to access this stuff. I think too, that building in from the get-go, the self-care, the creating a space in which they get the support they need. We can only control ourselves. So if you have 9 clients in the day yelling at you, that's hard to come back from if you don't have any space to connect with. I think the pressures that we talked about, both personally and professionally, these are the individuals who get into medicine and stuff. They're high worth individuals. They are smart and they are perfectionists usually. Often if you think about it, working with animals is amazing. It's a different kind of interaction, but then you add the human element to that and you may not be prepared for that. Some vets are very great communicators and some aren't, just like anybody else. Support staff also need their attention. Different things are happening. And so I think the reasons that we've heard are really around that. You have access. There's a lot going on. Depending what kind of system you work in, what's going on inside and outside, keeping your bills up at home, keeping the office open, not working 100 hours a week, all of those things feed into the opportunity to die by suicide.
Do you guys have stats, or is there information on the different rates or different impacts from independently owned and operated practices versus more of the corporate, bigger structure systems?
Yeah, unfortunately, NOMV does not. I think the most recent study that I've seen with stats is the 2019 CDC study. I think there's people working on what those stats look like. I think sometimes the way that things are presented, we might not have all that data yet. But I think they're working to try to find that. And what we're really trying to do is be based on whatever, without even that information, we want to work really on the prevention side. So what can we input to these doctors, techs, support staff, people who work with them, to ensure that they have a way to help themselves before their mental health struggle is so deep, or, before they're feeling like there's no other option.
Well, so let's talk about some of those early warning signs or early signs. As we're pet care professionals, we have friends, we have family, we're in vet offices all the time. We're working to network. What are things that we can be looking for, or should be working for, or educating people on to be if they're struggling?
Sure. I mean, there's a lot of things to think about. So if someone starts to, if their personality changes, if they start to be more aloof, more kind of withdrawn from you, if they seem moodier, that can be a reason. Now, sometimes we're just moody, right? So I'm not,
sure.
I don't want to say that, but signs, when you see changes in someone, when they're not showing up the way they did before, when they seem to have less compassion, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all, based on them, when they seem to have a harder time walking through that day. Maybe they're your vet and you've been seeing them for years and you know them to be chipper and smiling, or at least very, professional, and they start to come in with a different demeanor. You want to check in on them. If they're withdrawing from their social connections, that's a big time to check in. If in fact they're struggling, it feels like they're saying things like coming to work isn't healthy for me, or I don't feel good coming to work. You want to check in. But I have to say, I want you to check in with everyone every time. How is it going for you? Right. Yeah. And so those signs are there, but I think what we could do better as humans is check in with each other. And in the vet community, I'd love to see us all say, how's it going? Take those 5 minutes to just, give someone a breath.
Yeah. And you said that phrase, check in. And I think, oftentimes we can be rushed. And so we can do the, how are you doing? Fine. And we move on with our day. But I think what you're really saying here is just open up that space a little bit and really just, have that moment. How else would you suggest we work on that check-in, and how to have that initial conversation with somebody?
Sure. Well, if you are worried about someone, I think it's okay to say, hey, I'm worried about you. You seem a little different than normal. Is there anything I can do? Right. So it's okay to ask others, are you doing okay? So I think that's really important. I think just in general, being, trying to show up calmly and listen both directions, but listen to what's happening. And, that active listening can help you also to deal with what's going on for you. So when I first started at NOMV, my first week, I woke up in the morning with a very sick cat, had to end up going to the emergency. And, I was watching the whole thing going on, and the vet came out and said, this is a very sick cat. And my first reaction was to tear up, because I was like, oh no, I didn't expect this coming. And they were wonderful to me. And I tried to say what I tried to do in the moment. First of all, I said, thank you for giving me the space. This must also be hard for you. And I can imagine that your day has been full of hard things. So I'd like to do that. And then I just, I think thanking them for being available, and thanking the support staff. When you make your appointment, thank you. When you hit the office after you pay your bill, even if it's a chunk and you're like, say thank you. Just those kind of small things can make a difference for someone.
Yeah, you're this revolutionary term of empathy, right?
Yes,
it's amazing. Yes. It's amazing how much that can be, and realizing that there's, like you said, there's two sides going on here. When our dog passed away, it was obviously, we were just absolutely devastated. And we're sitting here, and you can imagine the vet is over here. How are they feeling? Is he feeling good about the situation, that he couldn't do anything to help save our dog, that we didn't, it didn't work out this time, and remembering that they're going to try their best, and to encourage not just ourselves but our clients. Remember, if we're interacting with our clients, if we suggest these things, having these conversations with them to change a little bit of that culture as much as we can, right? We can only control what we can control, but we do have a sphere of influence that we have to remember. And if we can develop a culture of gratitude and empathy, how much more so is that going to impact our broader community?
I love that. Absolutely. That's key, I think, in any case. But as pet sitters, I think I've done a little dabbling in pet sitting myself, and, I always end up in love with the pets, right? and their owners. I mean, I have 3 Boston Terriers and 2 cats, so my house is crazy.
Yeah.
And pet sitters, find it crazy. So I always try to overthink them for hanging out with our little ones. But that, it's absolutely true. And also sharing resources with them. Like, I know that one of my dogs, Monty, Monty has to go to the vet, have you heard much about the vet community and mental health, and, open in a conversation with the owners about that, say, I heard this great podcast and I learned a lot, and, it really opened my eyes. So, I'm happy to share that with you. Or, like you said, just opening the feel of empathy, or the conversation, or, when someone's saying, I'm having a difficult time because my pet needs, 12 medications and it's very expensive. And even saying, providing your clientele with some opportunity to learn about what's going on and what options they have is also a great thing.
Yeah, as much as we can do to educate on our end, right? Yeah, I love that sharing those resources, because again, if we have veterinary friends, they're, as we already mentioned, insanely busy. They don't have a lot of time to be going and looking up things and doing their own research outside of this. And a lot of times, what happens is just kind of push those feelings and emotions out just a little bit more. We're going to delay dealing with that one more day. And if we can come in and say, have you heard about this organization, this association? Have you heard about this meeting that's going on? Have you heard about this? Would love for you to be there. How impactful that could be, just getting resources in front of people.
Absolutely. We always say at NOMV, we try to make resources as easy to digest as possible, so that, you don't have to think too much about it. Like 10 mental health tips, there you go. Anybody can use those. But it's also a great gift to give someone when you're just thinking. So when I went into my vets and did the shadowing, I took them a few of our cards, but also, some fruit and nuts so that they could have something nourishing, and also some donuts because everybody needs those. But the thing is that just by those small acts, amazing. And I was there the other day because I do have 5 animals, so I'm there quite often. And somebody had sent them a little bouquet of flowers, and it was just the sweetest thing. Now, you don't have to go that far, but that thank you, that being involved, that getting to know the side of the conversation, thinking about, like you said, thinking about what the doctor must have been going through on their end, or the tech when you had your pet pass away. They're more like family than they've ever been. And so we treat them differently, which also impacts the way medicine is done, the opportunities that we have to give more life-saving structures. Not that they haven't been there, but I think we're more, as a culture, more willing to do that. Our pets are sometimes our 4-legged children. And it makes a difference in how, if you understand the other side of the coin, then you can do better going in.
I know you mentioned the Clear Blueprint program earlier. I did want you to share about some of the other programs and resources that you do provide to veterinary professionals.
Absolutely. I always say we have 3 basic arenas that we work in. Resources are, we do support grants for individuals to help them if they're struggling with housing insecurity, transportation issues, food insecurity, mental health, or medical bill needs. So just a quick grant to help you get through a difficult time. We have emergency grants for clinics if there's, let's say, political unrest or fires or damage or hurricanes. We help them stay open to meet the needs of the community. When everyone's struggling, we help a little bit to keep them going so that those animals can be taken care of and that they can take care of themselves. And then we have a list called NOMV's list, and you can do a search, and other vet professionals have given us resources that they've used so that they can really look for vet-specific resources. So when you're not familiar with a community, and if you're going for therapy and the therapist has no idea what the veterinary day looks like, it can be a little harder. So we do have that. And then we have support. So support is mostly peer support. We have an amazing program called Veterinary Mental Health Support, which came to NOMV from another organization early last year, and is supported by Zoetis. They provide psychoeducational groups to veterinarians for free, 6-week groups, as well as individual psychoeducation courses that are sessions. These are not therapy. They're meant to be a facilitated discussion where you can learn some skills, maybe think about things differently. And then we do some skill building workshops in there, as well as our Lifeboat, which is a program that we've partnered with the University of Tennessee and Auburn University to create an online, asynchronous, anonymous peer support program where vets, techs, and such can log in, and we pair them with a group of 3 vets or techs who've been trained to be peer supports. Again, it's all online, so it's chat. So Collin, you and I could be talking, we would never know, but we're supporting each other in that way. And then that also has some mental health counselors who support the whole entire structure, making sure people have answers to what they need, etc. And we have our forums, which is where we were built. So that is an online Facebook vet group, tech group, support staff group, where they can be on there that's moderated, and they can kind of bring up things that are going on and get feedback from the community. And then finally, education. Education includes our Clear Blueprint, which to me is a certification. It's an assessment and certification program that allows the clinic hospital to see where they are with providing good mental health, well-being support to their team, and then some inputs on how to adjust, some training and information. And then in our education, we also do talks like this. We do webinars. We have a YouTube channel that's available to anyone, so non-vets can get on there. And personally, I've learned a lot from it, not being a veterinarian, as well as we try to do blog posts and just get out there and spread the word and create materials too that people can have accessible to them that help them in those times of need.
Are you a passionate pet sitter or dedicated dog walker looking to take your career to the next level? Join the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters, the leading organization dedicated to elevating pet care. With industry resources, ongoing education, and a network of like-minded experts, NAPS empowers you to shine. Whether you're expanding your business, building a new client relationships, their community is here to support you every step of the way. Visit petsitters.org today to learn more and join the movement. Take the leap and let your career flourish. NAPS, where pet care meets excellence. I love how you mentioned the specific resources, because even if you go talk to a mental health professional, if they're not familiar with your stresses, your background, your daily life, a lot of or it can be that some of the recommendations and resources are not going to be quite a good fit. And you can walk away feeling like, I didn't really feel seen. I don't really know. I wonder if nobody can help me with this. And so being able to get plugged into a community of not only are there going to be resources here, but these are also people who are living it, and they're here to support and be supported.
Absolutely. We found it's great. I mean, if people, all of us, we want to feel connected to the person. If we're going to get therapy, we want to make sure that they have some kind of baseline understanding, and to have that resource. It's been really amazing. The team has really done a lot to make sure that it's really dedicated to the veterinary community. So anybody from the field who's in that can ask us to add resources, and then we vet those resources to make sure there's no issue with, somebody unlicensed providing therapy, which, all of those things. We just try to do that extra step to keep it up to date as well.
I was curious if you could share, if you felt comfortable sharing an example or story from NOMV and kind of how it, so people can get an idea of how this can impact a clinic or a vet.
Oh, sure. I have many stories. A recent one was I was at a veterinary conference in Las Vegas. I believe it was in March, and I get super busy at these, and I'm all over the place. And I just happened to be lucky to be at the table at this one moment at the booth for NOMV, and someone came up and said, "I just want to say thank you." And we all said, "Oh, you're so nice. Thank you so much." And they ended up sharing that, they started in the vet community some time ago, and it's been up and down for them. And they went on to our forums and felt like, oh, it's good. But at times, they were like, it was so many people and overwhelming. So I would sometimes get off. So then they jumped into our lifeboat program and said, oh, wow, that peer support was really helpful. I was in a place where I didn't feel like I could look at my situation with a good lens. And they said, I was able to, connect with the peers and get some thoughts about other people are going through these things too. It's not just me. And they said it was really wonderful to have that camaraderie. And then they even shared that their clinic ended up becoming Clear certified. And we were like, wait, hold on, what? And so amazing. We were like, this is a good track. And they said that really, when they now have searched for a new job since being involved with NOMV, they ask different questions. What is work-life balance to you? How do you make sure that we're supported? If I'm struggling, what opportunities do you have? Do you have an EAP? Do you have, is there someone in the office that I can talk to? How do you feel about time off? Those kinds of things that really help them interview their employer in a different way than they had before. And so I was really proud of that. It seems very basic, but they were like, I feel like that really has helped me grow. And now I feel like I have the bandwidth to help other people too, because I've learned and progressed and processed and all of that. So that's just one. Support grantees often write back and say, oh my gosh, thank you so much. That $500 meant me losing my place to live or my car, and now I get to keep both, right? And so, those really basic needs, if we can start there, then we can build off of that. So
yeah, well, and the amount of impact that I'm just reflecting on the kind of questions you'd ask an employer. Because imagine that employer, if they start having not one, but 2, 3, 4 people asking these questions about mental, like, okay, I need to change something, right? Or I need to do something different now. And how this influence can start working its way out into the system. And that does start with going, and those questions don't come from somebody who doesn't value those. And I think that's what's really important of when you get access to resources and you can see, you go, wow, I actually do need to value my time and I do need to value my mental health. So I'm going to ask different questions, not just about pay and benefits and how often, what are the advancements like going to be in the clinic, but other things that are going to give me a better balance. And that really does start, again, changing that culture and community around the clinic itself of instead of going, well, this is you come in, you give everything, you leave everything on the floor and there's nothing left of you and it just drains you immediately because that's what we have to do. We go, well, what if I'd like to be able to show up tomorrow and the next day? And what does that actually look like?
Absolutely, Collin, you're right on. And I think when we as a community value it, it becomes, like you said, it's the wave. It hits everyone and it keeps going.
Yeah. Well, and you even mentioned the perspective of why that community of that person got plugged into the clear blueprint and they got included in this stuff, and all of a sudden, what it allowed them to do was see their perspective through a different lens. Absolutely. And that's one of just the biggest things that being plugged into a community, that peer support, what that gives you is, they even mentioned, I didn't see my situation in a good light. And man, how often have we been there where it doesn't matter what good things are happening in our day, it's all crummy, it's all bad, and everything's horrible. Yes. And to have somebody come alongside you and speak life into that situation and give an outside perspective, really, like that can mean so much in somebody's life.
100%. Just like the check-in, just like, being there.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
Yeah. I was curious, what just kind of misconceptions do you see most often that people have in the vet industry that you'd like to kind of speak out against?
So do you mean people who are working in the industry or people who are looking at the industry?
Ooh, let's do both. We'll start with people. Let's start with people outside the industry and then we'll move in.
Absolutely. So like I said earlier, I think a lot of us think, veterinary medicine, first of all, they're making tons of money. They have a cush job. It's so easy to play with animals all the time and do all of this stuff. There's so many types of veterinarians, and it doesn't matter companion animal to zoo vets. They're all dealing with struggle. Think about if you've been caring for an elephant for 2 decades and something happens to them. That is just devastating. As you said, your dog passed. I've had animals pass. It's devastating for me. So they're feeling that. So I think other people look at it like a cush job that you make a lot of money, you get to have a lot of fun and do all these things. But it is a really taxing job. And in different arenas of it, it's taxing in different ways, but it's all to the same vein in that, they're overworking themselves at times. Keeping the lights on are important, etc. And their costs, their vet school costs are super high. So most people don't leave without some of that. And then for veterinarians looking out, I think when you come into the field, it's good to know that you have to work with people. You will be working with people because people generally are the caregivers of animals.
Yeah.
And so that's important to remember. And that it is important. I think historically, it's been okay at times in many industries to kind of let certain things go. Oh, that person just, has that kind of personality. They're just rough around the edges kind of thing. But I think it's important that we help people to learn better communication skills. And I think vets going into the industry, when you're in school, techs, etc., I think we should do a better job of creating skills, even talking about communication, de-escalation, how to talk to someone about difficult situations. And if you put those skills in early on, you'll do a lot better. You'll feel a lot better. Your clients will feel better. And even those hard days will be easier.
No, I love that because it's much more of a holistic approach to what life is actually going to be like as a veterinarian. It's not just problem solving cases, giving sutures and, and figuring out medication dosages. It is the communication with people. It's the working through relationally. Is that, we're dog walkers and pet sitters. I've never been called by a dog to go for a walk, and the cat's never paid me after I scooped its litter box, right? That's just, once that happens, all bets are off. But for now, there are people coming in, and if we don't have those skill sets to go, man, this person in front of me is bawling their eyes out, or they are beyond, filled with grief or rage that something can't happen, or you're right. Like, what if you don't have skill sets or somebody in the office in the clinic to deal with that? What do you do? Where do you turn? And how does that actually work itself out? And I do think that that's why a lot of people get slapped with the, they just have no bedside manner, or it's some of that they just had to turn off eventually because they didn't know what else to do. They didn't have any other skill sets to lean back on.
Absolutely. And I love that you said somebody in the office, because I think that's the other thing is, for all of us, leaning on other people is important. So if a vet has a tech who's particularly good at some kind of conversation, leaning on that person. If a tech is having a difficult time, or the support staff is being able to lean on your colleagues and say, you know what, today is the kind of day that's really hard for me. Yeah. Or having someone that, you guys that does have those skills who can help with those conversations. We don't have to do everything. That's the other thing. We don't have to be perfect, but I think the more we develop and build, I'm learning every day. Some days I do things wrong. Some days I look at myself and think, gosh, I could have, shown up so much better. And I think every human has that feeling. And then I look at my dogs and they look at me like I've done everything in the world right. And I think, okay, there's something great. So I think that point that you made, I really want to keep that at heart, is you have a team. And if you can work in a team, that will help your mental health too.
Yeah, just like we go to the community for support for ourselves, we can lean on others for their giftings, their talents, their abilities, and realize, I have enough on my plate. Sometimes the first thing that I need to do is ask for that help with just outsourcing something instead of, taking one more thing on in my life. Exactly. Going, how do I get this off? And sometimes that's the space we need to spend time on a forum or to spend time on a phone call with a friend instead of focusing on this other stuff.
Love it. You are absolutely right.
So, Gigi, if somebody is listening to this and either they themselves are struggling, or maybe they know somebody who is, what would you want them to hear most?
You're not alone. That is the biggest thing that NOMV wants everyone to hear, is you're not alone. Reach out. If you know someone who's struggling, reach out to them. Even if you don't know what to do, even if it's just sitting with someone, that can be the best thing ever. If they do say, I'd like some help, then, be prepared to take them, to a medical facility or whatever they might need. In the US, we have our great 988, which is available 24/7. You can call. For any reason, you can call and say, I need someone to talk to. That's why they're there, to prevent us from going down the road that we struggle too much on our own. And they'll have great people to talk to you about different things. If you yourself are struggling, 988 is great. Giving someone else that number is great. If you feel like you're struggling, look at who you can count on in your life and try to go to them. If we have resources, other people have resources, find the one that feels good to you, the community that feels good to you. If you find yourself backing away from being engaged in the community, try one small thing. I talk to people about this all the time. One small thing to make that change. Even if it's, hey, Collin, do you have 5 minutes? And even if you don't want to talk about what's really on your mind, having that 5-minute conversation with Collin can help you feel differently too.
Mm. Yep, being there, finding support and being support. And you mentioned just the impact of sometimes just sitting with somebody in silence can mean the world to them because of they know somebody's there. And I know we have 2 kids, and a child's book that we read years ago was called the Rabbit Listened.
Yeah.
And right. Okay. Like, and the thing falls down and the elephant comes in and they're all trying to problem solve or get angry or blame or all that. And yet the rabbit just listened, and the power that had of letting the boy feel seen. And it just, that we need that in our lives so much more than we ever expected or even recognize of. We need somebody that we can talk to, and whoever that is, find that person, have their number on speed dial right now before you think you need it, and build and have those relationships. And I think importantly, what you're also expressing, Gigi, is to be that relationship for somebody else when they need it too.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how many times just a random call, someone's called and said, oh, I was just thinking about you. And I was like, I really needed that. And I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Or, those kinds of things are really, really important. So you're never alone. And there's always someone. There's always someone.
Well, Gigi, I really want to thank you for coming on and talking about this topic and stressing to us the importance of community, staying connected, and the resources that are out there for people, and that we aren't alone. For those who want to get in touch, follow along, find more resources that you all have, how best can they do that?
Well, we have a great website that is very much easier to review than it used to be. So it's NOMV.org, which is very easy. Usually if you put Not One More Vet in Google, you'll get us pretty quickly. So all of our resources can be found there. That's really the best hub to get started. We have what's coming up actually at the beginning of May. For the month of May, we're hosting what's called Race Around the World. It is a virtual Get Moving for mental health activity where we're trying to bring awareness to the community. Anybody in the world is invited. I know last year we had over 20 countries involved and people from all over sharing. And it's also a little fundraiser for us. So it's an easy way to give back by just getting on the app and learning and seeing people. And then if you walk your dog, you can write that you went a mile that day or not. And it's a great way to build community and hear and learn more about not only our resources, but just tips in general. So we're going to be sharing great information from other people too that can help you connect. And I will say, even though NOMV is meant for the veterinary industry, people I know, my friends, my family, they really love seeing the materials that the team members and volunteers create. They really get something out of it. So hopefully you'll join us and visit us at nomv.org.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, I will have those links in the show notes and on our website. So the website, the race, the YouTube channel, and your social media accounts as well, so that people can start following along and get connected and share those as well, because I think that's what's really important. So, yes. Gigi, this has just been such a wonderful conversation and a real blessing. So thank you for coming on today.
Collin, thank you guys for reaching out. We're so honored as NOMV to be here and to be talking to your community. And you pet sitters do a great job. So thank you for doing all of that too.
Mental health isn't just the individual's responsibility. It's about a community. I love when Gigi talked about how when we as a community value mental health, it creates a wave. It hits everyone and it keeps going. It influences every aspect of not just our lives or other people's lives, but every aspect of our community, whether it's in the veterinary care, the grooming, pet sitting and dog walking, or other industries outside of that. These small acts of compassion and understanding ripple outward and have impacts far beyond what we could ever imagine. So whether it's checking in on somebody that you know, expressing your gratitude, or just simply listening without judgment, our empathy makes a difference. Let's all try to be part of that wave. We want to thank today's sponsors, Time to Pet, and the National Association of Professional Pet Sitters for making this show possible. And we really want to thank you for listening. Thank you so much. We hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and we'll be back again soon.